Mental Health Masterclass Trauma. How does trauma impact upon complex mental health concerns? In order to support and care for students who present with past and/or ongoing trauma and complexity, we need to seek to have a deeper understanding of trauma. Trauma is an event or events in which a threat or the perception of a threat overwhelms a person's capacity to cope. This event causes the individual's body to experience stress and may cause a flight, fight, freeze, or faint reaction. The word trauma not only explains the events experienced, but also the impacts of the experience. Trauma can occur at any age and will impact individuals differently, and the impact can be repeated within people's lives. It is often very hard to discern and really have a deep understanding that the ongoing impacts of trauma can be lifelong. Trauma can also be felt across communities and groups of people. Learn how trauma may be evidenced through behaviour and challenges within a school setting. When we look specifically at trauma in children and young people, we are looking at trauma which impacts upon their brain, body, emotions, memory, relationships, learning, and behaviour. If we look individually at each of these areas, we will be able to see how difficult it can be for children and young people to manage when distressed and upset. Brain. Trauma is thought to have significant implications for the development of children's cognition, language, and self-identity. Body. When children and young people are exposed to trauma during development, they encounter ongoing chronic stress. This ongoing stress and challenge can lead to a child not meeting their developmental milestones and struggle to mature in specific areas. This is caused by stress hormone and dysregulation, adrenaline, for example, and cannot be controlled by the individual. Commonly, there is also a higher reactivity to sensory stimuli. For example, sudden noises, not necessarily loud, large noise volumes like crowds. Emotions. Emotions are key for children and young people in managing behaviours, and if emotional development is impacted or impaired due to trauma, one's emotions do not develop in order to support distress and feelings. Memory. Children who have or are experiencing trauma will have difficulty with a wide range of memory tasks. Most commonly experienced is the inability to remember an instruction if it was given while the child or young person was distressed. Relationships. Having a sensitivity to some environments and/or intense reactions to stress makes it very difficult for a child or young person to form a meaningful bond with peers and teachers. The emotional stage of development for children and young people is, who am I and where do I belong? This is a challenging stage for us all and doubly difficult for a child or young person with past or current trauma. Learning. Compromised language development, including difficulty in the comprehension and social use of language despite apparently adequate verbal abilities. Behaviour. Because the body is sensitive to stress hormone and dysregulation or adrenaline surge, the child or young person is prone to behaving as if frightened. When the circumstances around this feeling don't make sense with the body's reaction, the child or young person becomes confused, angry, or embarrassed, all leading to a perfect storm of distress in a very short time frame. Note, the experience of the trauma sufferer's body is almost identical to the experience of a relaxed, happy person riding a roller coaster for fun. This fact is why we always have hope for the child or young person's recovery. Develop a deep understanding of trauma-informed care and how to embed this within school cultures. Creating environments where students who have an experience of trauma can feel safe and connected is incredibly important towards mental health and well-being. Schools can provide an opportunity and a place to be a safe environment for students. Schools should be a safe and predictable place for students. Being able to generally predict each day as it comes reduces problem-solving effort and allows more energy towards coping. To create this place well, we would encourage you to work from a trauma-informed practice framework. This framework has basic principles and core values which include the following. It's not an intervention, but it guides our interactions with students. Safety. Have we looked to ensure emotional and physical safety for the individuals and students you are working with? Trust. Is the support you are providing helpful and sensitive to children and young people's needs? Choice. Is there choice involved for the children and young people? Inclusion of choice for children and young people will continue to develop safety. Collaboration. Working with the student and their family to find the best options and support available. They may look different to what we want, but it is what is best for them. Empowerment. We ideally want to be able to empower young people to see what choices are helpful to them and their ongoing experience. Respect for diversity. Each of us have our own experience of trauma and challenges, and we must ensure we show respect for all people and their experience. Explore how to support students who are struggling with distress in the context of ongoing trauma and challenges. Be as consistent as you possibly can be with children and young people who have experienced trauma. By being an adult who is consistent and reliable, you will continue to create safety for the student to engage with school. Build ongoing relationships with students who experience trauma. Developing and maintaining connection can be challenging, so modelling appropriate behaviour and encouraging peer connections can be helpful. Reassure their safety when distressed. You see them, are with them, and are able to support them even when they are feeling distressed. Provide choices for the student. For example, would you like to sit or stand? Giving agency to the young person when distressed can create safety and security for a young person. Obtain support for yourself if you feel as though you are struggling to support children and young people with ongoing trauma and distress. At times, our own vulnerabilities can be impacted by the support we provide, and you may need ongoing care and supervision to maintain your own health and well-being. Case study, Trauma Case, Study 1, Mental Health. Michaela is 16 years old and lives at home with her mum and 2 older siblings. She's been attending your school since Year 7. She is a proud Aboriginal young woman. At age 14, Michaela self-placed back with her mother after 8 years residing with foster carers after the foster carer mother, Fiona, passed away suddenly from a brain hemorrhage. She continued to live with her foster father for 6 months after her foster mother's death, but found the loss of her to be too much. She still has weekly phone calls with her foster father. Michaela was removed from her mother due to ongoing family violence between her mother and her father and their ongoing illicit drug use. Her older sister was placed with her, and she has only recently reconnected with them since moving home. The father is currently incarcerated due to the ongoing perpetuation of violence towards her mother. Since returning to her mother's care, you have noticed a change in her behaviour. She has engaged in self-harm on her arms and ankles and has been increasingly defiant in class. On 2 occasions this term, Michaela has left her maths class in distress, yelling and throwing her pencil case and books at the teacher after being asked to complete her work. She then walked to the 2nd story of the school and threatened to jump off due to feeling upset and distressed. You have called her mum on both occasions to ask her to come and pick Michaela up after her distress has passed, to which mum stated, "If she is okay, then I'll just leave her at school. She can walk home at the end of the day." You have reported this to child protection teams. However, there has been little engagement from outside agencies at this stage. Michaela has shared with you that she believes no one cares for her, and she feels as though she's a burden to everyone. She feels the only person who ever cared for her was her foster mother, Fiona. Case study questions. What changes in behaviour have you noticed? Defiance in class, throwing items and yelling, threatening to jump off the balcony due to ongoing distress. What mental health symptoms is Michaela displaying? Engagement in self-harm on her arms. What are your next steps from a school perspective? Consider further mandatory reports due to challenges within the family system. What referrals or pathways would you consider? Family support services, community mental health team follow-up, longer-term psychological support. What further information would you need to obtain? Current services involved for the family. Support at school for ongoing distress and concerns. Trauma Case Study 2, Intellectual Delay and Mental Health. Jackson is a 15-year-old male who has a diagnosis of severe intellectual delay with a full-scale IQ as less than 55, a severe expressive and receptive language disorder, and also a diagnosis of oppositional defiance disorder and anxiety. He attends a school for specific purposes. Jackson has been at this school since year 4. When Jackson was placed at the school, you were provided with some family history for him. At age 3, Jackson was removed from his mother's care due to her ongoing drug use and misuse concerns. He was cared for by his maternal grandparents, who cared for him until age 7, when both passed away in a car accident. Jackson was in respite care when the accident occurred. Jackson's mother was unable to have him restored as, due to her parents' sudden death, she continued to engage in drug use. Jackson was placed within a foster care family, with whom he continues to live with. Jackson's behaviour has changed over the last 3 months. He is noted to have become angry towards any adult, especially females, where he will attempt to kick and punch them. He has destroyed classrooms by throwing chairs and tables at doors, windows, and the smartboard. He will abscond from the classroom and will not return when asked. He refuses to follow any instructions, and when he is upset, he is difficult to calm, where he will rock and shake with his eyes closed, and he wails loudly so other students hear and become distressed as well. These behaviours may continue for up to an hour if he is left alone. However, these will escalate further if any adult attempts to speak or come physically close to him. He can express himself simply, but this causes him distress. When this occurs, he becomes aggressive and violent to any person who may be physically close to him. Last week, Jackson picked up a stick and attempted to stab a female student learning support officer. Case study questions. What changes in behaviour have you noted? Absconding from classroom and not returning when asked. Throwing items. Increase of distress when adults attempt to intervene. What mental health symptoms is Jackson displaying? Challenges to calm when distressed. What are your next steps from a school perspective? Risk, health, and safety considerations to keep him safe at school due to ongoing absconding from the classroom. Considerations around Jackson and female staff members. What referrals pathways would you consider? Ensure all NDIS support is in place for Jackson. Possible review by a paediatrician for ongoing concerns.